There it goes.
Do you have it working?
Yeah, it's recording. Do you have the the outline up?
I do. That's why you can't see me.
Okie dokie. So basically, we'll jump in with the two normal intros. We'll do lineup where Mike and Shawn, you introduce yourselves, say where you work or where you worked or whatever the hell you want to say. And then after that, go into family meal, just talk about what we've been eating, what we've been cooking. And then after that, we'll jump in and address some of the shit that's going on in Philly. Off the top, just start off by talking about is how we feel in general, what we're seeing. And then we'll get into some of the more topical stuff where it's like, is this probably going to push back the delay for reopenings for restaurants? Property damage. I know A-Bar got fucked up.
They had it coming.
The what?
I said the owner might have had that coming.
Yeah.
I used to work at Fork. It was like, I saw that. I'm like, oh, I feel sorry for Ali, but like, I was like, it's like the owner's a dick. Like,
I feel that. Yeah. And then once we get some of that stuff out of the way, we'll jump into just more about what the reset is going to require. Different stuff like that, more restaurant-oriented stuff, but it's kind of tough not to address what's going on in general, but we probably don't want to spend too much time on it, but, you know, something we got to address. Cool. So, without further ado, line up. Shawn, why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, where you work?
Shawn Nixon. I used to be a bartender before the apocalypse. Now, I'm just a couch surfer like everybody else. You know, welcome to the Hunger Games. May the odds be in your favor.
And Michael, we have you back as always.
Yeah.
Cool. And Shelby and I are here, your faithful hosts. So before we jump into some of the things that are obviously going on in Philadelphia right now, we are trying to be an industry podcast, but this is something that is sort of hard to ignore. So we want to address that off the top for everyone. And then we'll get back to some of our normal segments. So Shawn, I'm going to toss it over to you. And over the last few days, what have you been thinking, feeling, seeing? What are your thoughts for how this comes to an end?
I mean, it's like 50-50. Half of me feels like Malcolm X had his window with the M16. The other half of me feels like the guy in Armageddon that wanted to ride the nuke to the end of the world. Like, I got front seats. Really surreal. I mean, I try to stay focused. I set up objectives every day. I want to do this. I want to work out, get my exercise. I find myself at night being really restless, and that's like the worst time. The first 2 months of this thing, like the first 2 weeks, that's what hit me kind of hard as far as like the restaurant industry. I miss my regulars. I miss the camaraderie. Unfortunately, at Village Whiskey, I was just let know that one of our servers, our cocktail servers, Cody, he committed suicide.
No.
Here on the 27th of May. He had to go back home and shit deteriorated quickly. So it's impacting people. So like, no matter, even if you don't know anybody that's died from the coronavirus, we know people that's being affected by it. And I'm just realized how important going to work and talking to those people are so important. Like, you know, we all like basically worked at Twisted Tail, and we worked at Twisted Tail at pretty much the same time. And, it was times where as though the place was just overwhelming, but we had each other. You take that away from the equation, it goes from being a job to being a labor. You know what I mean? And when you don't make money, it's even worse. It's going to be real interesting to see what happens after the stimulus package ends. So, like I said, I'm just trying to set up my short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. This didn't catch me completely off guard because I actually survived 2008. So this is not my first rodeo. I thought 2008 was the worst thing to happen to the restaurant and bar industry since the prohibition. What's happening right now is it's going to change something. It's going to be 2 years before we get back to business as usual.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
the most assessment there. Michael, you went down to the protests that were happening following the murder of George Floyd. What was that like? The little report from the ground, if you will.
Honestly, it was really eye-opening. I've been following a ton of the videos online and stuff. I didn't make it out Saturday. I really wanted to, but I had family obligations I had to attend to. It was nice to be out there. Everybody was in the best spirits they could be, if that makes sense. Everybody was peaceful about it, and there was a lot of humanity just coming together for a cause, and there was no violence. Nobody was smashing anything. I mean, we walked miles through the city, and at a point, when it started, there were maybe 100 people there when I got there. And then as it kept going, there was a point that we were walking through the city and I heard everybody chanting and you could feel the bass in everybody's voice. And I turned around and realized that there were thousands of people behind us. And it was a beautiful thing to see, everybody out there for a just cause. It was nice,
Yeah.
And then, they gassed us. It was fucked.
Yeah.
That they're really it was completely peaceful.
100%. And to the point that I completely understand it might not have been the world's greatest idea for people to be on 676, but whatever. Everybody was on there and people were getting out of their cars and chanting with us, honking their horns. They weren't mad about it. There wasn't a single person that was mad that traffic was blocked. And the cops actually had some of the traffic blocked. And the weird part to me was too that they had them standing at the ramp, but there is this magic little section of gate that just wasn't there that the media is claiming we broke, even though there wasn't a piece of broken fence there. And then all of a sudden, one end had gas and the other end had gas, and then gas was everywhere.
And that's scary. And the big thing that I've been seeing and being concerned about is people bring their kids to these peaceful protests. And then it's little kids are there, I would be fearful personally to bring a child there, but I understand why you would, to show them what that would be like in the peaceful protest. And the gas, it's just terrible.
Yeah. Well, my thing was too is there were non-protesters on the road. You know what I mean? That got gassed. These people were literally just on their way home from work, and you thought it'd be a good idea to trap these protesters and gas these civilians. And I know the protesters were civilians too, but you know what I mean? Non-protesters, just your average human coming home from work.
Yeah, who didn't opt in. Because when you go to protest, you're taking that risk. You're saying go there regardless of what happens. But the people who weren't, that's terrifying.
And I thought it was weird too. They had coming home, I saw at least 5 blocks just blocked off. The city was dead for 5 blocks coming to this, almost as if they were trying to make sure there weren't people there to witness what was going on.
Mm-hmm. They're very strategically blocking off certain areas of the city. I had to go to Cherry Hill yesterday to get groceries because everything's closed. And they have everywhere blocked off. Huge lineups of cars and trucks and buses to arrest people. You can't get anywhere.
No.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's kind of interesting that you said strategic, but tactically, and I guess this is just me being a veteran here, man, strategically, man, the police look like they're inept, man. It's for instance, these guys fired gas into the wind. So, I saw the video when the gas was just coming back at them. I don't know how well they've been trained to deal with this type of thing. I don't know if they were trained at all, because this is kind of new. This is like a Martin Luther King assassination level type riot, whereas though it happened in every city, and that this is one of them type of things that's going to go on for 4 or 5 days. And, for y'all guys that, don't know, how they stopped that riot was they got James Brown to give a free concert.
Really?
Yeah. Which unfortunately we're at a disadvantage, because in the Corona era, we can't have that type of, gathering. So that's like really how they were, and we need something. We need like sports right now. We need hockey playoffs. We need NBA playoffs. We need them to run a game every single hour from like 1 o'clock to like 11. Because
we need some positivity in the world.
Yeah, well, just not that. We need a distraction, because even before this happened, people were home on quarantine and we had nothing to do but pay attention to the news. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they're just noticing how the injustices. Me, being an Afro-American, being born in this country, I've lived it. I was born in 79. Like, I experienced Rizzo Police. I've experienced I lived on 59th and Pine in 1984 when they dropped a bomb on 61st and Pine and Larchwood. Okay?
Yeah, I know that you were there through that.
I have seen things worse than this, believe it or not, at the young age of like 5, 6 or whatever. So like a lot of people's been home and they've been able to do the math. They're like, dang, it seems like since Rodney King, the first time he really got something in court on camera, this thing has just been happening more and more. You're talking about the Sandra Blaines, you're talking about, you know what I'm saying, the Trayvon Martins, and then you look at how much it happens in 1 week, and all people are asking for is this due diligence, man, a fair investigation. Quickly, give the victim the benefit of the doubt. And at the end of the day, I don't care if somebody's resisting or not. We have to talk about lethal force, okay? Whatever happened to shooting the Maine? I mean, why is every shot fired by a police officer at an unarmed victim center mass? Okay, you shoot center mass to kill. You shoot in the shoulder, the arm, the leg. You shoot the main. You can restrain somebody after the fact. No, we're seeing this straight up. It's like they're playing real life Call of Duty, because when you play the video games, you can't. You hit somebody in the leg, they're going to come back. No, they're treating it like it's a video game, and everything's center mass, and that is unnecessary force.
Yeah, well,
and I don't want to hear about cops being scared, bro. Like, I don't. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't give veterans that same. In the Army, if you're scared, you're not a good soldier. You're not a good Marine if you're scared. You're supposed to be efficient above all things.
Well, the police have all the military surplus gear now, and they're not necessarily trained in the best way how to use it. So they're super militarized. They feel like RoboCop, and then they're out there.
I've done a little bit of research into their training, and you can get better training going to your local gun range and taking some classes than some of the police officers actually are getting, which I think is completely fucked.
Archery and gun club gives a thorough training for your Act 235 gun license. It's a state issue license, and like the way they train, like there are certain militias, paramilitary groups that are being trained better than these police departments. I mean, it's crazy. I don't see it. You never see it on television. You never see Philadelphia PD at the police academy showing how they train. They keep that like secret squirrel, man. So like
I've known cops that, I mean, I'm surprised they're cops, not to say that in a mean way, but like quick training, like all of a sudden they're
They're not sent to boot camp. Like when you're in the military, you're sent to boot camp. You're broken down. You are put through some of the hardest things in your entire life. And cops don't get that, even though they are soldiers that are here on homeland.
Well, they're just dealing with most like shootings and certain things that are kind of like normal, but this is not normal. They're not trained for these extreme situations.
Well, it's a little consistent. The training, because they give them military hardware, but then you're supposed to be a peacekeeper. So it's very, they're contradicting their whole purpose. Like, honestly, I don't look at police as any type of soldier whatsoever. You're supposed to be keepers of the peace. You're supposed to be, when you can defuse a situation, you should be doing that. I mean, I have a bunch of ideas. You know, I know we're like supposed to be talking about restaurant stuff and all that, and I don't want to hijack this conversation, but I've actually wrote down a lot of ideas. And some of that is, I think basically all police departments across this country should be a federal level position. I believe that the FBI should be the only ones that investigate police violence. There is no way you're going to ever get a fair trial from a police officer's peers. I don't care that internal affairs is supposed to be a different department. It's not. It is still the blue line. So like you, and to keep that from having that conflict of interest, you just need to have the feds investigate it. First of all, killing somebody is mentally trauma. You know what I mean? That's trauma. Like, why wouldn't you want to come off? Why are you back on the street 2 weeks later after taking somebody's life? You know?
You
so
shouldn't.
So there's a whole lot of things that should be done. And they need oversight. You know what I'm saying? We need committees. We need committees that has teeth and that can actually do things. And we need somebody being responsible. Like, we have a police chief that I think is just not qualified for the job. And I wanted to she's a double minority. She is a woman and she's Afro-American. And I wanted her to succeed. But I feel like the first day of the protest, the way our police went out there, I feel like it starts at the top. And I feel like she didn't even give our cops a chance.
Have you read up on her at all? Because she was apparently the one that was there in Portland when they had the Antifa riots.
Mm-hmm.
And like hearing that, I would have thought that like she was trained for what was going on, but it doesn't seem like our city's doing it. But I'm also wondering, like, it wasn't Philadelphia cops that were out there most of the time. It's mostly stateies. So like, I don't think she has jurisdiction over those, does she?
No, I mean, it's the city, the state police.
I think there's
it's
so
her
many other
jurisdiction.
people.
You know.
I mean, I saw her press conference today. Her press conference, she seemed pretty pissed in like a good way. Like, she seemed fierce as fuck. And I don't know, I kind of just I'd never seen her speak before, but just watching her, I was like, I don't know, I got a kind of a good feeling about her. And she pointed it out a couple of times throughout the meeting, like, to the reporters, like, you see my demeanor right now, like, I'm not happy, and all the questions you're asking me, I'm also, asking my department. So I think that she's gonna bring a foot down pretty hard, I hope. But to sort of corner into something a bit more topical, like, how do we see this affecting, the reopening of restaurants and getting back to work, which is got to be probably
I think it's going to set us way back. We're definitely going to have spikes in the virus, which they're going to use to keep us down. But, like, you also have to think, like, there are restaurants that got looted, like, which sucks. Like, there's small businesses, and the liquor that they had that they might have been able to make their money on, because that's not something that goes bad. That's not a cost that they had to have to reopen their restaurant, is now gone. Like, I don't know what they were going to do. I know Chef Brian Sikora that I used to work for in Wilmington, both of his restaurants got whacked. And he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know if I have the money to go ahead and open up both of these restaurants on top of having to get the restaurants that I've had to close down that have, or the restaurants that does takeout and is barely surviving. Like, He's like, I might have to shut them down.
Yeah, I mean, when you get looted and you're already down so much money from coronavirus and only having to do takeout, I mean, how do you bounce back from that? I mean, and I'd be scared as a small business owner of any sort of industry. If I knew everyone was being looted around me, like, I probably would hold off opening out of fear.
There was one good video I caught of a few looters, and I mean, like, this is coming from looters, so grain of salt, but, like, they were shouting, no small businesses, no small businesses. So, like, hopefully that saved a couple, but there are a lot of people out there that are just out there to be greedy and get theirs. Like, it's really, really odd.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, even if they were yelling no small businesses and holding off on a lot, I mean, I saw a couple of things of small business owners standing outside their stores with assault rifles being like, I'm protecting what's mine. But I mean, I think that certain small businesses might have been okay or safe, but ones like restaurants with, giant rooms full of liquor probably are not safe.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've worked at bars where as though they actually locked up their liquor every single night. I just think that we prepare in the industry too many times for good weather. You know, we've been at work. We've been like, yo, we're totally not going to make any money. Make some freaking cuts because there's a hurricane and nobody's coming out and we got 10 reservations. But owners and managers have to look at it from like, no, I expect these people to come. So
Yeah.
you have to like plan your business as far as with the kids. We knew the kids were unruly. We knew what the kids say was running up in Wawa. And I'm just like, yo, we got to close this joint now, all doors right now. You know what I'm saying? Don't let anybody in because these dudes down here are about to run in here, 10, 15 of them at the time, and they're going to take what they can. You have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best in this new restaurant industry. And another thing too is like, we can't act like the restaurant business wasn't oversaturated. It was literally starting to become like a welfare state for people with trust funds. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, people who may or may not can't cut it in other fields were just like, I'll open up a restaurant. The market was oversaturated to begin with. So we were going to have to end up hitting the reset button anyway. You know, I mean, first came Corona, then you know you're going to have problems with the economy. So it was going to be like 2008. So a lot of these restaurants are going to fall by the wayside anyway when we open back up and everybody come up off unemployment. A great example, there's a garage. Those guys had to cut half of their bar staff, and then they had to like guarantee these guys like you're getting $1,000 a week for them to come back off of unemployment. At the end of the day, most restaurants can't do that at all. So, you know, trimming the fat is one thing, but you're in over your head. How long does that last? When let's say we open up today, come fall when we can't be outside anymore, we're not going to be able to fill up the inside enough to really keep a full staff. We're going to have to come up my solution was to get back to classic fine dining. That was my first job. I worked at the Bellevue. I was 18. They had like dining rooms, like clubs. People need to pay every month $100 to be a part of this restaurant club or whatever. And then when you come in, you still got to pay. Gratuities are mandatory.
Yeah.
The best, restaurateurs and like review critics are all talking about this remodeling that's going to have to take place, which is exactly what you're talking about. Part of that might be membership fees. Part of that, good example is Steven Starr has a restaurant in New York and he was sort of on the forefront of doing this, which is just creating other streams of revenue. So basically, you're putting your restaurant inside of a store where other things can be bought, and basically you're sitting around and the furniture that you're sitting in can be sold to you. So if you're like, oh my God, I love these chairs, like how many times do you hear people say, I love these glasses, this is amazing. But then as a server or bartender, you can say, well, for $39.99, you can take home like 4 of them. And that's just, you're creating this atmosphere and this feel with your restaurant, and then you're allowing people to literally take home the restaurant to them piecemeal as they wish, which is, once again, the number of times I've heard, I love this plate, I love this glass, this chair is amazing. Where'd you get, like, you can just buy it right there and then take it back home, have that
merchandising.
Yes, that is the sort of thing that's going to happen in the new world, because, restaurants have been getting more and more popular over the last 20 years. It's been cooler and cooler to dine out and know what you're talking about. But at the same time, in those 20 years, despite becoming more and more popular, the margins haven't changed at all. The margins haven't moved. It's still razor thin margins, and it's impossible to survive like that. So we're going to have to find ways to find these other streams of revenue, like partnering with a hotel, partnering with another business, that sort of thing.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. The to-go cocktails still are legal after all of this goes on, because I mean that's a huge amount of revenue for PA, especially in Philly, where everybody stops in the beer store and buys beer and walks around anyway.
There's it won't be, but I mean I could see keeping them as you can't walk around with it, but they're sealed and you have to go home. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't continue doing that, and they just have to figure out the rules for it. But I mean, they have to give restaurants some sort of crutch.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering what's going to go on too, because I feel like, so once this does all settle and restaurants go back, there's a ton of businesses right now that are realizing all of their employees work better from home. Like they're slowly realizing I don't need office space. So all these buildings are going to open up, and I'm hoping they go towards affordable housing. But I'm also wondering how many people out here, like I know a lot of great chefs and great bartenders that have been playing around with the idea of like, well, what if I get a cheap startup and I can start my own restaurant? So like I'm wondering if we're going to see a few people that like have been doing this and are like, okay, this is the new thing. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to be successful. And then we're just going to have a bunch of people who like are just shooting at the wind, buying up, you know, the property they can and willy-nilly opening up a restaurant and like kind of screwing up the market a little bit.
I mean, a lot of places are doing that, big offices. I have a couple friends who work in corporate, and they their offices are probably going to shut down, like go completely digital. Because why pay for the office space
when you don't need it? Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
People are fine from home, and you're saving your ass. Like, you know, I have a friend in real estate, and she was saying that, you know, most companies buy like a 5-year, you know, lease, 5 or 10 year, and it's like nobody's going to want to opt into that again because this made such an era of uncertainty. Like nobody's going to want to sign a 10-year lease. They're going to be like, no, I'm just going to run my lease out and then make everyone work from home.
Yeah.
Easy.
I was thinking too, like the bigger restaurants, the conglomerates, the Dardens of the world, they're going to be okay. You know what I mean? Because they have money for days, they have a huge endowment, they have resources, they can buy everything in bulk. But the mom and pop shops, the small ones, are one of the ones that's going to hurt the worst. I mean, and I actually think they need to work together. So a prime example, if I know the pizza shop down the street, you know, they have volume, they have delivery drivers and the whole 9 yards, because we got to stop using Yelp. We have to stop using all these like people that
Grubhub and Foodler and all that.
Yeah, that's straight up raping the restaurant industry right now. I mean, no gel. You know what I mean? And like they're like, yeah, we got you hooked on this, and we're going to take 30%. Sometimes they're taking 30%, and that's ridiculous. But if you have somebody that has a bunch of delivery drivers, like a pizza shop, maybe we could pull together our resources. Maybe we could work together that way. Maybe we could buy our stuff in bulk. Maybe we can share employees. Like, you know, hey, it's kind of slow for me, but I'm going to send you over to help. Because for this first year or so, that's what it's going to take. If not, we're going to see like all the mom and pop shops go away, and they're not going to come back. Because once once the conglomerates get hold of this industry, they're never going to relinquish it, ever.
No.
Yeah, that's part of the remodeling, though, is getting away from third-party, like caviar, all that shit. Open Table is the sort of the biggest benefactor. They have the entire monopoly on this. And it's weird because even if you have regulars that come in on a regular basis, they're still booking their stuff through Open Table. And it's like, they're going to come to you anyway. And yet, you know,
they want those points.
You're paying $1, you know, for them to give you back, you know, 25 cents basically. Like you're losing a lot of money through Open Table. So a lot of these third party sort of actors, whether it be a caviar or an Open Table, like these things are going to have to go away, and it's going to have to go back to,
I think people right now are using it as convenience factor of like, well, I'm hungry and I don't really cook well, or I'm tired right now, and you can just bring it up, and there's all these different restaurants there, and like they're like, they think like, oh, hey, I'm helping, I'm supporting the restaurant, and they just don't know how much money these things are actually taking. And I think
most of the restaurants are doing free delivery. It's like if you just if you call
call the restaurant, people at home, call the restaurant.
Exactly.
No, it's important to know. Or take a walk.
Well, I know a lot of places are putting their own menus in with the Grubhub orders and things, just to like say like, hey, call us next time, you know.
I know that we are at the tail. We're putting like the delivery things, we're delivering for free within like 3 miles. I mean, people have called us so further, and we do it. You know, it's just necessary.
Some clause with caviar, but fuck them, really. But like I've gotten a few orders before where like I was lazy and ordered through caviar, and then I opened my package and there was like this big letter in there that said, just order next time. And I was like, yeah, all right. So.
All right.
You know who's the worst though? Postmates is the worst. You could order something for $15. You're spending $10 in miscellaneous charges, and that's before the tip. It's like an actual $4 service charge for that, and then there's a delivery charge, and then it's just like, I'll just walk. And the Postmates, they all are useless. Open Table, I will say this. Open Table was like the first one. And for a lot of people, they were a way to promote. So, like, I'm not mad at Open Table as much as I am with, like, Caviar, Yelp, all these other ones, especially Yelp. Yelp, say you get, like, a bad review. Literally, it could be, like, somebody that's dead that's making this review, and they'll still keep it up there, and you got to pay for it to come down.
Yeah, but I heard the co-creator of Eater talking on a podcast the other day, and he was saying, basically how before Open Table, restaurants knew how to market themselves properly. Like in the late 90s, early aughts, like you would have to, have like a really solid marketing team and go through big strides to get your name out there. And then once Open Table came around, people got lazy about it, and then they were just, the hegemon in the reservation world. And, people just got a little bit lazy and stopped promoting their brands. And now when we find ourselves in a situation where when we come out of this, the only restaurants that are going to survive are the restaurants that have, name value, that have branded themselves well. And most restaurants have forgotten how to do that.
I see PR becoming like a major part of restaurants now, because there's like a ton of restaurants. Like I know Royal Boucherie had like a team that they had, but they were also a larger restaurant group. Like there's a ton of smaller mom and pop shops that like they just don't use Instagram. They don't use Facebook. They're like, we're just a neighborhood spot. But like I feel like in order to survive in us reopening, you're gonna have to have that big social media presence and that marketing to put yourself out there.
A good one too. I mean, you can't just like have this like week. It's not enough just to be on there. You have to like really pull out your best.
Of course.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, also too, as far as how it affects us personally as employees, the days of being like the glorified shot pourer and beer pourer, and calling yourself a bartender is done.
Yeah.
You gotta have a real skill set. A waiter is pretty much useless right now with all the to-go. So when you get back on the floor, you better be maximizing your sales. You better be able to enhance the menu that the chef gives you and be able to describe this and get to the bottom line. You better be making money or you're not going to have a job. It is going to become cutthroat. If you've been working at Red Lobster's, Applebee's for like 4 or 5 years, don't even walk into a real restaurant.
Yes.
If you've been working at Michael's and you pour shots, don't walk up. Don't even go downtown because you're not going to get the job. You're not even qualified to be my bar back. And I'm not being pretentious in that. But we've been at those lineups on Fridays, sitting there being drilled about whiskey. And I'm going to say, and then we had to deal with the chef who's like, all right, what is this? Explain this to me. Okay. So we're actual professionals. And this novice thing that people are like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're out of work. I don't know what to tell you. I don't, it's like, it's crazy. It's like, baristas, they do a job. They actually, speed and all that. And I respect them. So like, they're going to be okay. Nothing changes. But like some of these people that's like not going to be able to work at like the restaurant we work at, the caliber restaurants, man, I don't know, maybe go back to school. Maybe a way restaurants can make extra money is actually properly training people off the street, paying people to be trained. There's money in that.
Well, that goes back to what you said about garage, which is to me the most interesting model I've heard. Where it sucks that they had to gut a bunch of the staff, but they were like, "We get it. You're making $800-900 on unemployment right now. Come back to work. We'll pay you $1,000." Like that seems to me like the first step towards an actual livable wage.
Yeah.
And if that can take off, that I think would be
I think it'll be really great if we can pull that off. Like, if you can pull off, if it's like, hey, wow, you have a set of skills. I respect your set of skills. Yes, please, I want to hire you. Like, I think trimming the fat, like you said earlier, is the best way to put it. Like, you've got to be skilled now. Like, you're not just that person that like, oh, like I didn't bother to graduate school and now I wait tables. Like, no, that's out the window completely.
I think other than like the big places that are going to stay open like that, like really competitive, it'll be maybe some local bars, maybe some bars that are just kind of have their set clientele who've lived there forever.
Yeah, like New Wave's not going anywhere.
But I don't think that's, I think a lot of them in the city that like call themselves local bars are going to drop off.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's only going to be the authentic ones that have been there forever, and like, you know, people are already scratching at the door trying to come in who that's like their living room. I think that's the difference. But I mean, I think it also says a lot, like if you're a bartender and you're passionate about it, if you go to look for another job when you come out of this, and they're like, well, what have you been doing? And you haven't been learning more about your craft, you're going to look like a joke.
Well, I've noticed I started
Social
applying
media is
around
important.
just to see if I could like find something to do, like to go or whatever, or like I know there was like Steak 48 apparently is opening right next to the
I was actually in the middle of training when all this broke out for Steak 48. Yeah.
That's what they so my girlfriend just interviewed there, and I was excited because they're brand new. So like seeing them open into this is going to be really nice to see. But I applied around at a couple places just to see. And I noticed with the application, there's a follow-up email, and they're asking like a ton of questions now. And it's not like, oh, hey, what goes into Manhattan? It's like, oh no, like here's these ingredients. Like, what would you make out of this? Like, it's in depth.
Damn.
Yeah. Steak 48 had a very thorough interview process. Fortunately, you know, when I get an interview, I look for the person that's going to hire me. And I actually had the executive training manager, and I like nailed it. Then they put me on the general manager. But on those questions, man, they're like, it was about 20, 25, maybe 30 cocktails. Things from lemon drops to like perfect Manhattans to whatever. And they gave you wiggle room to put your little signature on there too, you know what I mean, on certain cocktails. And they were kind of looking for that. So like the industry is going away from dogmatic bartenders, and they're actually looking, you know, I mean, I gag when I say this, mixologists. You know what I mean?
In here, Shawn.
I hate that. But that's what they want.
Yeah.
That's what the guest wants. The guest wants to look there, and even though it's a cocktail of the week from like 4 weeks ago, they'd like, just make me something special. Okay, yeah, here you go. Here's this black cherry gimlet. You know what I'm saying? I got this syrup.
Like everybody's done it. You can go on YouTube and like you can find all the recipes. Like everybody's like, I could make this at home. I know what's in this. I'm fucking bored. Like,
we're doing all the cocktail how-tos, and at first we were just doing like common cocktails that people can make, and then we started doing our house ones. And that's what people want right now. But I mean, it's also releasing like our house recipes, and that's such a game changer. That's something that not a lot of people do.
Well, it's amazing how mind-boggling. Like you just show somebody how to make something simple, like a fucking, I don't know, like a rosemary simple syrup, and like you show them the process, and it's like mind-boggling to them that you just steeped rosemary and poured sugar in it.
Yeah.
To get back to what Shelby was saying, like, what have you been doing since the quarantine? Honestly, like me personally, I've been posting on Instagram, like, if I make a cocktail, if I make a whiskey sour, even though that's like the most basic of cocktails, I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I'm gonna show people how to do it. Dry shake, blah, 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 blah. And then people are at home watching. That's your brand. Your personal brand. We are independent contractors for what it's worth. You will get hired based upon your following. Right now, Steve can guarantee when he goes on an interview, I guarantee you, the Shawn, Shelby, Andrew, you know what I'm saying, Dirty Mike and the boys, they all going to show up. And they're going to show up every Tuesday and Thursday. As an owner, I'm like, okay, that's making more money for me. And your regulars are going to become my regulars. And they're going to bring friends. And that's how it works, so like, yeah, people should be home. If you were weak and with wine, you should be home listening on YouTube, reading books. If you were weak making cocktails, if you were weak with your speed, You need to learn how to do that. How can I work more efficient? You know, man, it's a big difference between being a professional and just being somebody with a job.
Yeah, but also, please call it bartending. If I hear the word mixologist, I'm gonna vomit again.
No, but I mean,
Mike and I
it's
make
true.
a lot of crazy shit over at the boucherie, okay? But we're still, at least me, I'm not gonna speak for Mike. I prefer to just be known as a fucking bartender. And
I don't
mixologist,
know.
ridiculous.
I wiggle with it. Like, I think there's like, I think if you're sitting here and explaining to me like the exact reason why this infused this way and the molecules in it are doing this and I'm using this equipment, like you might be able to call yourself a mixologist because you're explaining science and all that. But like, I personally respond better to a friendly neighborhood bartender. You know what I mean? Like an average person that just happens to like drinking a lot and wants to show you what they love.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a stigma with mixologists that, is clear. Steve
Yeah.
I
doesn't
don't see any
call
curly
them
mustaches here.
mixologist because there's like this negative, like, oh, like you're a mixologist, like you're so big and mighty. But I think that might change once this starts and people have to, like, it's like you went to school for bartending, like you paid your dues, you're like, the science
Hold
behind.
on.
So do you think?
Did we just say something about going to school for bartending?
That's
Well, yeah, so that's what I was about to ask. Like, do you
Yeah,
think
when did we
bartending
start
school might
recognizing
actually
that?
be a
When did
thing?
we start
I
recognizing that?
saw a bartender school on someone's resume. No chance of getting hired. That's a joke.
All right, fuck you, Steve.
Well,
'cause
so
did
I
too.
went to bartending
right.
school and I was naive, but
Right.
I mean, bartending
Thank
school.
you,
But
Shelby.
what I learned from it is that bartending school is bullshit. I mean, you
But
learn.
do you
It
think
made me
won't be bullshit?
comfortable.
It's a
It made
money
me
trap.
comfortable behind a bar, but it's a money trap. I mean, if I could go to bartending school and learn how to make different syrups and why you would put this and this, like that I would pay for, not like going and having a bunch of food coloring in bottles and making woo-woos. I mean, it's like,
We can charge people. We can
Well, that
charge
was my
people to
thing, 'cause
become
there
bar
is-
backs now. We could be like, hey, you want a bar back for me? You got to pay.
Yeah,
You gotta pay to be my bar back.
My bar back.
You know
I
what
love
I'm
that.
I hope
Seriously.
bar backing goes back to what it was originally, which like what I understood of bar backs was like, okay, you're working your way up to a bartender. So come here, hang out, do the bitch work, and I'll teach you a thing or two, and then maybe
That's
you
how
can
it
go
should
into
be.
another restaurant or someone gets fired. Not this fucking dumbass college kid who just needs extra money for beer that's showing up after a fucking darty half hammered at my goddamn party. I know you know who I'm talking about, Steve.
But no, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, that should be something where you come in, you work your way. And I mean, that's how you get the best employees, I think, like the people who are showing you from the start that they're, willing to do those things. Like, they want to learn.
Yeah, I'd like to see out of this though, like going back to the bartending school, like if this does become something of like a respected craft as it should be, I would like to see an actual bartending school come about. Like I know the Aquavita Institute is pretty good. They're kind of a money grab. They have some better classes, but like I would like to see somewhere that teaches you flavor. Because of all the things that I've seen, like it's memorize these drinks. They teach you that. And they teach you how to hold things and how to be, but they don't tell you these flavors pair together. Hey, here's a copy of the flavor Bible. Like, learn it, love it, sleep
They
with it.
taught drill work. You just learned acronyms and you made them
Where'd you go?
100 times. The mainline bartending
Oh, me
school.
too.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my God.
it was like $600 or $700. I mean,
Is that the one in Manioc? Is that the one in Manioc?
Yeah, it's that piece of shit one in Maniac.
yeah,
Fuck those
but I
guys,
mean,
dude. They took all my money.
Yeah.
if they were to actually make a bartending school, or hey, we could make a bartending school, you would have to charge a lot of money for it because you'd have to pay for the alcohol and the stuff. But if you really, it'd be like going to school to be a sommelier. You would learn the wine, you'd taste it, you'd know where like the different things come from, the origins. And I mean, you could charge
I'm talking
people
about a real
thousands.
sommelier. I'm talking about a real sommelier. I mean, I'm all for getting credentials and taking a test and all that. I actually started in this industry with the first female sommelier, Marissa Tomanoff. She's a goddess in this industry. She left. I worked with her at Savona and Maya. And like she was actually trained in Austria. And so this is like somebody who, that's the standard as far as I'm concerned. Everybody else, yeah, you're a bar manager, and that's great. You know what I'm saying? But if you can't tell me, you know what I'm saying, that this bottle had a fire and that's the reason why this cost so much, blah, 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 this year, then, you know, you might not. I think the term sommelier gets thrown around just as much as like mixologist and bartender. So like there's
what level of sommelier? Because like level 1, I know a lot of people they're like, yeah, dude, I went out and I got my level 1 somm just so I could get a pay raise.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
You know, like I think it got diminished a little bit because I know like a friend of mine, he's a maker in Napa and like he trained, I think he's level 3 now. Something like that. But like he trained for he studied for almost a year, if not more, just to get that. Like he put a lot into it. He drank everything he could. He did blind taste tests at home. Like he put work into it. And it sucks to see that shit diminish.
Well, it's about job placement too. Like if you were gonna actually have, like the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, like I mean that, most classically trained chefs end up going through there at some point. If you had either a branch of that or something similar for bartenders, that would make sense to me. Or if you were
Johnson and Wales has classes like that because that's how. So when I was living in Rhode Island out there, I had friends of mine that went to Johnson and Wales, and they were like, I was bartending, and they were like, hey, like I took this class on this. Like, what do you think of this? Can you help me with it? And it was nice to see like a culinary college have an actual class.
But you need to be able to place people. So if you were going to have your own like private schools, like let's say we all decide to start a bartending school tomorrow, part of what you'd be paying for is that by the end of it, if we felt that you had sort of succeeded, we would have all the connections in the area to actually get you multiple scholarships.
That's what the regular bartending school does. They have like an online portal that you could.
Well, no, because a lot of their online portals are just fucking Craigslist. Because I've gotten trapped by that before. They're like, well, we have job placement. We'll show you the applications, and then there's literally mirrors what Craigslist says.
Yeah, no, it's true. And actually, I was looking when I was managing at the tail, like I don't know where I even saw it, but I was looking at like a list of, because we were looking for people to hire, and I was like, we're on the fucking bartender, mainline school bartending applicant list, and I was like, we should not be on there. And I was like, and the owner was like, I didn't put us on there, like we shouldn't be on there. And that's probably true because it probably feeds from Craigslist and culinary agents, and they just put our listing. But I was like, nobody straight out of bartending school should ever bartend at the Twisted Tail. Like, no way.
Absolutely.
Go over to like Hooters or some shit.
Well, here's the thing.
That's what I did. Like I went from bartending school right to Hooters. Like you need a dive bar in between. Like,
well, that's what I did with the pub that I love to work at. I mean, I went straight from bartending school to there, and I learned a lot from there, But then I segued from there to the Twisted Tail. You have to that's the state. Like that's what people don't get though. They think that like that is like a degree.
It's not though. And like I can't lie. Like that's what I thought when I originally went into it. I had never worked in a restaurant, and I was like, the only place that made me happy was the bar, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I was like, I guess I go to school for it. Like, you know what I mean? Here's a school. Why not? And I mean, it's a con. It really is. And it's sad to see. Because, I mean, they have a great opportunity to actually show something wonderful.
It'd be cool.
A good place to start is catering. Catering bartending is a great place to start because you can literally be like, I'm sorry, I don't have the ingredients if you don't know the cocktail.
Yeah.
And you have a line, it gets your speed up. You know what I'm saying? It gets you down packed with the basic cocktails, and then you can kind of move yourself into like a dive. And then, if you want to elevate that thing, you don't have to be a dive bar. You could be like, hey, I made a cocktail of the night. Would you like to try it? And you could do that. It all depends on how ambitious you are. Also, too, about bartending school, if the bartending school is not showing you how to make shrubs and all types of other dram spices and stuff like that, you're ill-equipped for the day to work in this industry. Because like I'm telling you, the first time I was working at a bar and he asked me to do all that stuff, I was like, man, I didn't know. I just had to go on YouTube like everybody else did and figure it out. You know what I mean? And a lot of it's trial and error. And I don't think that was like 10 years ago. And I don't think the industry's going to forgive you for not being able to do those type of things. I mean, like, we once had a guy that was told to go downstairs and juice, and the guy was juicing the daggone oranges without cutting them.
It's my favorite story. But I mean, it's like, what do you expect? Like, some people just really don't know.
What do you mean, what do you expect? I expect you to know how to juice fruit if you're telling me you want to be a bartender. Like, I'm sorry. Like, even before I was into got into the bar industry or restaurant industry, I could figure out how to juice a fucking orange.
Wasn't the way you found that out is that, like, he was commenting on another bartender or bar back, and he was like, man, he juices really fast, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know how he gets the juice so fast. And then you see how he's doing it. It's just a whole lot.
Yeah. I mean, like, he literally had, like, he was down there for like an hour and a half, and he literally had like 8 quarts.
Everyone's like, what's taking him so long?
No sleeve. Oh, man. Those are shenanigans. We should just have a whole show just talking about, like, restaurant shenanigans, like the debauchery stuff.
Just
right?
old war stories.
Yeah, like Sunday brunches.
Oh, God.
Everybody's hungover.
I don't want to talk about Sunday brunch.
That's for next week. All right, final segment. What we are talking about now is going to be the blue balls that Mayor Kenny has just given us because we were supposed to reopen outdoor seating on June 5th, but that looks like it's going to be pushed back. He's now come out and said that people shouldn't be advertising for it at all, which I know Harper's Garden has, and a couple of the Delaware facing Morgan's Pier was one. They've been like, hey, we've got our table set up. They're separated June 5th. Let's go. Is that going to happen? If it does, is it a good idea? How do we feel about, just as employees, do we feel safe serving people outside, given where we're at right now with everything?
I think where we're at now with, like, what went on with the protests, we're definitely going to see a spike in, like, what went on. But, like, also, I don't think this virus is as deadly as they've made it seem. I've known people with cases that have survived very easily. They were like, it was one of the worst, like, weeks of my life, but I feel fine now, a lot like the flu. And I'm at a point that I'm tired of sitting down. I am tired of not having a job, and I miss being behind a bar. So I'm willing to take that risk. Like, I'll die behind a bar. Fuck it. Like, you know what I mean?
People willing to take that risk, but then others aren't, and then what do they lose their jobs? I don't know.
Well, then we trim the fat.
I mean, I know people who have been, to doctors and hospitals for other reasons, haven't gotten it. Most people that I know who have gotten it say either it's like a flu or they're like, I was short of breath and really tired for like a week and I got tested and turns out I had it. I mean, I don't know. I think, like, if you're generally healthy, I mean, at some point, the fear's got to go away. And as long as you're smart about it and there's, like, a really strategic plan of, like, how you're going to keep, like, if I was to go back to work, I'd need to know, like, what are you going to do to keep me safe? And, like, what are we going to do to keep customers safe? And then, I mean, you have to go back eventually. My mom lives in Jersey, and in 3 weeks, she's going to have to go back to working at the salon she works at. And she's like, I mean, eventually you have to, like, go back to real life. Like, we can't just, like, sit here and live in fear. But I think there's definitely going to be a spike, especially after all of these riots and these big crowd gatherings.
That's too way, right? People will show symptoms, so we're not going to know how big the spike is for another couple of weeks.
Well, here's the thing, though. Now is the time. It's the outside seating season. And that's always been money for us. We have the space outside to properly distance ourselves. As far as a bartender is concerned, I would like to see a restaurant actually buy the equipment to protect us and never run out of it. I'm not going to share a mask with Steve in between shifts that we work. You dig what I'm saying? So, like, we have restaurants have to have a commitment to keep employees sick. I mean, I'm not getting sick, but also too, how about this? How about we just pull house? How about, hey, Steve, you know what? You came in with a fever today. You can't work, but we're still going to pay you a point a percentage for tonight because we love you. We want to make sure that you can pay your rent, go home, rest, quarantine 2 weeks, come back, rock out.
Well, I'd like to see restaurants get some sort of sick leave now, because I know there's been plenty of times that I was like, dude, I don't really feel good, but like I gotta pay rent.
I have to go.
You always have to go to work. Like, I mean, it's been a thing. Like, because I know even like there's been times like we've all laughed about it, but like, that pussy called out. Like, you know, like it's always been a thing that no matter what, you show up to work.
It's interesting, like from an outside perspective, my dad was like, you guys talk about restaurants like they're like a war zone. Like if you guys don't feel good, you know, it's like, fuck it, I'm good. I'm gonna take a ton of medicine. I'm gonna go in, like we're all in it together. And like, I mean, that's gonna have to change a little bit. Like you're right. There's gonna have to be a sick leave. There's gonna have to be some sort of like forgiveness. Like if you don't feel good, there's no more like working yourself to that.
The question is, like, you know, when you call out in the restaurant, it's like, yo, man, like I got diarrhea, you know what I'm saying? I got 103-degree temperature, and, you know what I'm saying, I had like a migraine, and like, you know, I got boils. Yo, the owner be looking at you like, but did you die?
Hey,
yeah.
Because you could have came in to work.
I'm really going to need you to come in.
I need you to come in. I'll try to get you out of here. You know how many times I heard that? I'll get you out of here, and I end up working a clopin or something like that.
Oh, fuck
yeah. Come on, man. We got purple hearts in this joint. Right? You know what I'm saying?
But I'm also anxious to see what happens, like mask-wise, because like, is the restaurant going to provide the mask, or is it like your apron where they give you one and now you have to wash it all the time? Because I know like how often I washed my apron when I was a server, and like if my mask is like that, somebody's definitely getting sick.
What I won't tolerate is for them to have to take that out of my check. Restaurants got to stop with like the greasy shit. Like the gig is up. All that. First of all, they've been passed the law whereas though we were supposed to get time off. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of restaurants who, and that's the reason why they gave unemployment so quickly, and they didn't try to, you know, mess with us on that. It's because like Governor Wolf, Kenny, they knew that we were not getting sick time or paid time off. They knew it, and they were like, even though they passed the law, they gotta enforce this on restaurants. Like it's no more like where restaurants are outside of the law. You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like a thing where as though we live in a different world and like we're like living in the underworld and we got
culture of humanity.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's interesting saying that.
All right.
It's always been that way. Like it's always been kind of like that. Like I know when I first got into it, like I had family members that were like, "Oh, he's just a bartender." Like it's been something that like we've been kind of brushed to the side, and like now that we're not here, people are realizing like, "Oh fuck!" Like I miss being there every single day. I miss telling that person all of my problems. Like no, they're not just someone that pours drinks. Like I think we're gonna come out with a little more respect.
I'm just not a bartender. I'm a shrink. I'm a professional cop block as a guy's being a creeper. You know what I'm saying? I'm also your bouncer. You know what I mean? I'm there even when you don't ask me. I'm making sure that douchebag is not roofing you. You know what I'm saying? Unlike some places, I'm not going to say on Broad Street that basically had bartenders doing that. You know what I'm saying? Not going to say no names though. You know what I mean? That was a whole thing.
You know though.
Yeah.
We all know.
Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts. Shelby, what do you got for us on our way out of our 5th podcast of the year?
How exciting. No, I hope that everything calms down in the next couple days, you know. I mean, I think everything that's happening right now, like the environment in Philly is, you know, that there's so many people that want to peacefully protest and, you know, make their voices heard for everyone. And it's just, I really hope that it doesn't get worse. Like, I hope that a good thing doesn't turn into something really terrible. Like if the military comes, it's going to be terrible. And as far as the restaurant industry, I think that it's just going to be a big change. You know, I'm kind of excited for a big change, a little more respect, people really taking their jobs seriously. It's not just going to be a joke anymore. Hopefully some good emerges from, you know, I mean, this is a big reset, I feel like, in the world. in the whole world. You know, so hoping for the best, preparing for the worst in typical restaurant terminology.
Shawn, what you got?
I would give both of my testicles to work 3 doubles in a row, all quick. Never thought I would say that. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get cursed out by a chef.
Be careful
you know
what you wish for, Shawn.
For no reason at all.
I can make that happen for you, man.
Like I'm about to call Leo right now. I'm like, buddy, just scream at me. I miss your voice, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, as far as everything that's going on in the world, man, you know, man, without struggle, there's no progress. This is it. This is a struggle. I mean, all things worth having. It's going to be a labor to it. People are not trying to be supremacists in like Afro-American community or people of color. We just want equal rights. We just want consistent investigations and this, you know, we just want people to get arrested without fatalities. I get it. If somebody shoot at a cop, you shoot back. But like, you know, just come on, guys. You know what I'm saying? I want the cops to be a little bit more peacekeepers. And like also too, parenting. Parents, get your damn kids out the streets. In my day, I ain't gonna say what happened when I came in the house with a whole bunch of stolen merchandise. That's all I'm saying. I don't even know how that's the thing right now, but God, you know what I'm saying? Where's the parents at?
I agree.
Michael?
I just want to say, like, the world's gone to shit, it looks like right now. We will survive. We will get through this. We always do. But, like, mental health is a big thing right now. Like, make sure, like, even if, like, you haven't done anything all day and you still feel tired, it's because you're fucking stressed. Take that time, take a nap, crack open a beer, drink some whiskey if you have to. But, like, you are loved. The world is going to be okay. We will survive. Just, you know, take some time for yourself. Take some time to think about it. And just make sure you are okay, because we can't survive without everyone being okay.
Yeah. Check in on your loved ones and your friends, you know. I mean, I've seen all those posts about, like, you know, see who your friends are from who checks up on you. And I think that's such bullshit. Like, your friends that not be checking up on you might need you to check up on them because they're not okay. You know, that's such like a slippery slope kind of approach to things.
Best friends, we might only talk like once a month. Like, there's no checking in. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I completely agree with that statement. Like, it just because someone hasn't texted you in a while doesn't mean they haven't thought of you.
Yeah, I think that's important now more than ever to check up on people and do little acts of kindness.
Yeah. I noticed that when people go silent on social media, they tend not to be doing very well. You know what I'm saying? Like this, like a great example. Like, you know, if Shelby, I actually checked on you. I never called you directly, but I actually ran into Philip, Stephanie, and I asked about you. So I knew you were okay. But I was like, yo, I ain't heard from Steve in like a long time. Like, what the hell's going on? So we had to have a bar crawl here last week. You know what I'm saying? Practicing social distancing, you know what I'm saying? And it was great. It was good for the heart. You got to get some of those people out of the house now, you know what I'm saying? We kind of understand how this thing works. Yeah, get walks, check in, have conversations. Let people know that, hey, you're not the only person that's having these thoughts. I don't care how big and bad you are. I don't care how much you survive, how tough you are. We all bleed. We all hurt. We all need companionship, and we need these work relationships to continue even when we're not working with one another. So it's very important to check in on everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated that for sure. I think that's a good note to end on. Definitely needed to get out of the house. It was really good for me, so it's a good example what we need to be doing for each other. On that note, 86 listeners, please, whatever your preferred podcast medium is, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you next week.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Nice free t-shirt, Steve. I have that too. My Zoom still isn't working, so I have to make sure that's fixed for next week because that sucks. I don't know what's wrong.
Okay, so if I stop this, it's gonna tell me it's done, right?
Yeah, it'll say your like recording